have a Scavenging Ooze that's 4/4 and you make it fight something, you know? It's the nature of the cycling deck. Sometimes your 1-mana cyclers are actually cast.
Yeah, that is actually really interesting. I'm looking at this. Just cycling your Stinger to grow your Ooze. Yeah, that's synergy enough for me, I suppose.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you already want to play just like a bunch of 1-mana cyclers anyway to turn on Jarail to help fuel Euro and to just kind of make your deck a bit thinner, you know? Like, instead of playing a bunch of garbage removal spells and the Sultai Mirrors, like, instead you just get to play all these cards that cycle for 1. It's pretty dope.
Burchett actually kept on a 1-lander, found the second land. Now we see them passing with 2 mana up. You can keep more 1-landers with this high density of 1-mana cyclers, though they are not going to want to miss any land drops.
Yeah, the 2 copies of Mystical Dispute, I think, were the big draw. And with 2 1-mana cyclers in hand, as well as a Shark Typhoon as a 2-mana cycler, I think that it's an okay keep, especially whenever, you know, everyone plays like at least 27 lands now.
We see an Uro attempted by Goetschel on turn 3. Burchett's going to start by cycling Gopher of Blood, finds a land. Now we'll dispute the Uro. Let's stop that mana ramp there for now. Burchett has an Uro of their own, but no green mana just yet, so they'll just have to pass.
Wouldn't mind doing something like cycle, make a 1/1 Shark Typhoon token if there's no reason to play the Mystical Dispute. It allows you to use your mana efficiently. It also puts like a small amount of pressure on the board that your opponent kind of has to deal with. And thanks to this Narset, you know, it could be important to have that 1/1 around to tag it, but it might be worth just disputing to keep that powerful Planeswalker in check.
Yeah, actually 4 main deck Narsets for Goetschel this weekend. These are face-up deck lists, and Burchett has to be really concerned about these Narsets with this heavy cycling package. And the second dispute, that is going to tag that. Burchett actually has 3 main deck disputes. No doubt some of that is a nod to wanting to counter every Narset.
Yeah, obviously the Narset's a really strong card when everyone's trying to play Euro, you know, like having the ability to shut down that extra card draw. That's the main functionality of the card.
Saw a cycle of a Shark Typhoon for no Shark for Burchett. They do pick up the green source, and they pick up Negate. So this turn, Burchett casts Scavenging Ooze, leaves up Negate, starting to shape up the battlefield a little bit.
Yeah, not a ton of green to grow the Scavenging Ooze just yet, so it is easily containable by Goetschel if he's able to use the Eliminate on it. Maybe even just cycle a Shark Typhoon for 3 and trade.
And getting a little heavy on lands for Goetschel. You see 3 lands there, none of them Triomes, but an Eliminate could handle the skews, and a Shark Typhoon, which maybe you want to get aggressive with that. We might be seeing Eliminate right away, and we do.
Yeah, you want to tag that now, because if you wait, the Scavenging Ooze can eat the Euro that's in your graveyard, but right now, that's not the case. Now Autumn has to decide if they want to use this Negate or not on the Eliminate. The Negate can stop a really powerful Planeswalker later on, but keeping the Scavenging Ooze around for a turn cycle so that they can eat that Euro has a lot of value.
Yeah, that's the specific value for keeping the skews. Burchett decides against it. He's going to opt to cycle this Boon of the Wishgiver instead, likely looking for more land, specifically the second green source, maybe take advantage of this Uro of their own. We see Fabled Passage picked up. So now the land's really shaping up for Burchett. So you see a bunch of spells in hand. I'm liking Autumn's sides of things here.
Yeah, and as the game progresses, you know, Autumn's going to be able to keep churning through the deck with all the cyclers, and that's going to give them more food for Euro later on. It's going to give them the ability to, you know, basically just find more virtual copies of the cards that matter. That's kind of why you play cantrip effects, you know, like you shrink the overall size of your deck, basically.
So now we see the front side of Uro for Burchett. Put another land on the table. 2 Negates now in hand. We're going to see Goetschel actually looks like going to make that 1/1 Shark. Uses the only spell in hand for that purpose.
Interesting. Probably just trying to fill up the graveyard for Euro. Still looks like 1 short, though.
Yeah, likely was hoping to draw a spell, but nothing. Even a Fabled Passage would have been good, but just kind of 4 lands that tap for mana here.
Yeah, it does have Castle Vantress, so at least has something to do with the rest of the mana for the turn, but it's not looking so good at the moment.
Back to Burchett. With these lands rolling off the top, you see Burchett with the ability to escape Uro and leave up at least 1 negate on this turn.
Yeah, and if they're able to pick up a land, they'll be able to use both negates, though I doubt that that'll be necessary next turn.
Right, yeah, against a hand of 3 lands. You gotta wonder what Burchett is reading Goetschel for in this spot. We know there's 3 lands. Everyone at home knows that there's 3 lands, but you do want to play to try to beat spells.
Right. I think with the Euro in the graveyard at 4, I think Autumn just is under the impression that there's just like at least 1 or 2 reactive cards. Probably a land hanging out, but like maybe a Mystical Dispute, maybe another Eliminate. All the top end stuff I think would have been cast. Like all the Planeswalkers I think probably would have been cast.
Yes, the options here kind of like between making a pretty large shark or escaping Uro for Burchett. And I imagine that you go for the shark if you want to have double negate up on this turn.
Sure. I don't hate that play. Plus, the less that you play into removal and stuff, the less likely it is that Euro comes down from them. So if they are flooded and have like a removal spell in hand, you don't turn on Euro from the graveyard.
Castle Vantress does find some spells for Goetschel. You see Shark Typhoon and Narset on top. You interested in one or both of those, Todd?
I'm interested in both of those. If my hand was 3 lands and I had 6 lands in play, I think Shark Typhoon and Narset might actually be the 2 most desirable cards in the deck. Very close to it.
Goetschel agrees. Cannot blame him. Shark Typhoon drawn. The 1/1 Shark's going to hang back. Goetschel has sniffed out a Shark Typhoon on the way back. I think we're going to see Autumn make a 5/5 Shark here. Maybe a 3/3. We'll see. No, it'll be a 5/5. Let's go for broke.
Yeah, when you're doing this during the instep, it's not really a huge deal to not hold up negate. There's no instant speed card that's super punishing except for like a removal spell, but like no attack from the shark to me kind of signifies hey, I don't really have a whole lot going on. I don't really want my shark to get eaten. We might need this 1/1 later to protect this Narset that's on top of my deck.
Now we see Autumn play the turn from having this 5/5. Last turn, there was some instant speed action. This turn, it's going to be cast your spells or don't. I got to figure that they're going to jump on either Uro or Nissa, or maybe both. I don't know. How aggressive are you feeling?
I'm slamming, man. My opponent didn't do anything for 2 straight turns and didn't cycle Shark Typhoon last turn and had recently cycled a Shark Typhoon for 1. I think all that kind of leads to, let's go ahead and get Nissa, who shakes the world, onto the battlefield and get this Euro active. But what I really like here is this attack from Autumn, kind of baiting the Shark Typhoon for 5 from the opponent to potentially trade.
And this is something we have seen from a lot of our more experienced players on the tour. Start with this attack. I was thinking we might even see the post-combat Nissa. That was what I was alluding to. We see a lot of post-combat Nissa in these blue-green X mirrors. But it's going to be an escape of Uro.
Post-combat Nissa would have been interesting because I think that Autumn actually could have played Euro from the graveyard as well as held up double negate, which would have been pretty cool. I think the big thing is Autumn doesn't want to expose the Nissa to just a cycled Shark Typhoon attack. I think that would have been the big downside, just losing the Nissa to these 6 points worth of flyers. And since they already attacked for 5, they can't play defense with it. And because the deck's full removal, it's unlikely you're able to block with it.
That makes a lot of sense. We see Uro escape. We see Burchett with double negate up. We go back to Goetschel, who now has a 5/5 Shark. So we're at 5/5 Shark parity, but Goetschel behind on this Uro here. Narset's going to try to do some catch-up. There's a Casualties of War in hand, but based on the pacing, you got to believe Goetschel's respecting these negates.
Oh, absolutely. I also don't think the Casualties is that big of a deal here. Usually you want to save that to tag creature and planeswalker. Obviously, tagging the front half of Euro is like pretty good because then they can't attack with it, but When you can choose between a 3-mana Planeswalker or a 6-mana card getting hit with negate, you probably go with the 3-mana Planeswalker. Unfortunately, I think both are going to get tagged eventually.
Chet will negate Narset. That just works.
There's also some information bleed. Autumn knows that there's no counterspell from Daniel here to protect later on, because there was no response to the negate, and there was no potential response to the negate.
That clipped pretty quickly.
Right.
But Uro escapes, so there'll be a couple different cards in Goetschel's hand before we see untapped mana. You are right, though. At that time, there was nothing. Goetschel considering rumbling it with the baby shark. Maybe not.
Might be worth a little chump ski.
1 damage against an opponent at 21 with an active Uro. Not that exciting. Now we go back over to Burchett, who against an opponent tapped out, now might be looking at this Nissa, can easily do that with this negate. Not going to do that pre-combat, though. Jamming a land into Uro doesn't make a lot of sense anyway, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
but Uro and 5/5 Shark rumble in.
Autumn 100% wants to trade both creatures here. Autumn would love to have a mostly clear battlefield with a grip full of cards, especially one of them being Nissa Who Shakes the World. These opposing sharks, being on the table means that the Nissa is never really safe, because of just like the threat of spot removal. So I'm curious if the blocks come in here from Daniel. I assume that the blocks just kind of have to happen, and that might clear the way for a Nissa Who Shakes the World plus untap, maybe even play a Uro and a Jor-El from hand as well.
Bit of a pause on the Uro trigger as Burchett considered whether to put this Triome onto the table. That's something that's really impressive about these Uro Nissa decks, is just how easy it is to get the 3 mana to cycle these lands.
Yeah, on top of that, I love the Triomes in these decks because they actually just like get played most of the time. You know what I mean? Like in this spot, if Autumn had said, okay, this Triome needs to enter the battlefield because in 2 turns I might need that extra mana to be able to play another negate on top of Nissa and Jor-El or whatever in the same turn, I would have been like, okay, that makes sense, Autumn. You're a genius, and I trust you completely. But at the same time, you have a Jor-El in hand, so holding the Triome has a lot of potential value later on.
Definitely. The blue-green Triomes, the Ketria Triome, and whatever the Sultai one's called. If they're not in front of me, I forget the names of these ones.
It doesn't matter. They're just the Triomes, man. Just say the
yeah,
Sultai
you take
one
my meaning.
You know,
but they're a lot more impressive than Mardu Triome.
Can we not dump on Mardu Triome, please? That's like my favorite one.
I gotta, man. I can't not.
Have you not played the Doom Foretold Pioneer deck with the Mardu Triome?
Would you believe that I haven't?
Yes, I would believe that. You are, yeah.
So Nissa's going to wake up a land. We see Jor-El deployed for Burchett. Goetschel is going to send Uro at that Nissa. Our land picked up. We'll see if there's any kind of chump blocks here. Forest will jump in the way. Takes one for the team.
Yeah, both players just have a ton of resources at their disposal here, so it makes sense that a chump block would come through just to keep that Nissa Who Shakes the World active.
Pretty interesting pickup here. So there's a cycle of the Triome after the block. Burchett picks up Gopher Blood. If they don't fire off this negate, that could represent the second card that would be a 2/2 this turn.
Right. Cycling 2 cards on your opponent's turn does trigger the Jor-El, which is pretty cool. Normally, when it's your turn, you just have to play like 1 card draw spell to get the 2/2, but when it's your opponent's turn, you got to work a little harder.
I imagine it's pretty likely we see casualties walked into this negate, though.
What?
Maybe not. I don't know. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again.
No, it's happening. I was just... that was like a very sarcastic, what?
Oh, no. I read your sarcasm, but I try not to get in front of these Sultai players because it's just outside of my wheelhouse. They're better than me at it.
No one's better than you, Ryan. You're the best.
I appreciate that, Todd, but we both know that's not true.
Ryan, you are literally top 5 humans, dude. Regardless of your proficiency with Sultai ramp.
Yeah, I don't take my relative skill at Sultai as a personal flaw, for the record.
I mean, you should.
You can't be good at everything, and that's just not one of the things I choose to be good at. So we do see casualties. I want to destroy a bunch of stuff. Burchett wants to keep it. We've heard this story before. And another negate off the top.
I'm gonna do my best Owen Wilson impression. Are you ready for this?
I am.
Wow! Wow!
Time to make the what does Jor-El make? Is it cats?
The token is panther or whatever. It just looks like a panther token.
It is,
but it is a cat.
Well, the art is just super zoomed in. You just see eyes.
Yeah.
Could be a bear. Could be a word of command. It's really impossible to tell.
It's a panther, dude. If you look closely on the artwork for Jor-El, you'll see that there's 2 black panthers in her background, right? And then the token is a zoomed in version of the panther, which I believe is an homage to an older Magic card that I used to play with. I cannot quite remember the name of it, but it is a panther.
I didn't know you were such a Vorthos.
But one really incredibly frustrating thing is on Magic Online, Jor-El makes just normal cat tokens, and it's one of the dumbest, most annoying, stupid things of all time.
Is it like the same tokens that like Bramaz makes, or what do you mean?
I mean, basically, but they're just like, I mean, they're green, but they're not the same picture. They just look bad. The ones on Arena are so good. That token is incredible. Like, I love it. And the one on Magic Online is just a big nothing.
Ooh, speaking of a big nothing, you see Fabled Passage put in over one of these other lands, for example, untapped Stomping Ground for Burchett, and we see a fail to find.
Yeah, but the Euro, maybe it was on purpose. Maybe it was on purpose the whole time.
Could have been on purpose. I do like the on purpose missing value and then emoting oops.
Yeah.
I can respect that line. Doesn't look like it matters much. Big rumble across with the team. Goetschel down to 9. Burchett just up a million cards. We saw a resolved Boon of the Wishgiver there. There's a backup Nissa in hand now. There's a negate. This Go for Blood might actually relevantly remove something from combat. A lot to like on Burchett's side.
All right. Go for Blood, Euro fighting another creature. That's pretty good. I like that a lot.
Yeah, nice little combination.
It's actually amazing to me how much fighting has become like a relevant mechanic in Magic. I would say probably 5-6 years ago, if you told me that all a card did was like fight another card, I would be like, okay, what is, like, who cares? That's not, why is that in your constructed deck? You know, and the cycling part makes sense, right? But then you start looking at stuff like Voracious Hydra, and then like Voracious Hydra actually just became like a huge part of like Mono Green and Pioneer, and it was because of the fight. It wasn't because of I mean, obviously being gigantic helps, but like, you know, if it was just like a 6 mana 5/5 that fought something, that would be like playable, I think, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, if you removed the double option, the card would probably see the exact same amount of play.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, a couple different fight cards showing up. Primal Surge, the other big one.
Yep.
You see Thought Erasure from Goetschel, Ether Gust also in hand.
Not quite a fight, but the minus on Vivian Arcboy Ranger, the bite, like that's another mechanic for green that I think has been seeing more play that I actually really appreciate, because it provides some tension in the game. You know, you can't just like do it when your opponent has 5 mana untapped, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, attaching it to a Planeswalker, making it kind of one-sided is really nice. That you're going to see the mechanics show up definitely more often when you do that sort of thing. Burchett chooses not to fight with the negate. There's that interesting thing where I'm probably not going to get great value out of my negate if I let this discard spell resolve, but the hand's pretty stacked otherwise, as you see Boon of the Wishgiver being the selection. Now Goetschel's got to draw something, so you see Uro from hand.
Yeah, and that's obviously just to cycle and gain a little life, try to draw something relevant. Can't imagine there's a whole lot here for Daniel to get out of this. And negate face up now because of the thought erasure. It's just kind of like any chance you did have kind of closed off from this thing.
An island, definitely not going to do it. Maybe trying to pick up one of these main deck extinction events. Even then, though, the Nissa's still hanging around.
Yeah, and you have to name either odd or even. And even gets rid of tokens, land, and Drell. Odd gets rid of Euro only.
Now Uro will escape for Goetschel. Get a blocker, try to get some life. See Burchett's going to cycle with Triumph. Looks like Uro is going to show up. And Burchett contemplating, is this Go for Blood better as just some other card from the deck? Or maybe we're trying to fight that Uro?
I mean, I guess with like an empty graveyard from the other side, that's not bad, but what if like a removal spell was drawn? I guess you don't really want to have to negate something like an Ether Gust here, so a cycle makes sense.
Be a cycle. That's worth a cat too.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, because of the previous.
I'm really happy to see Jor-El seeing play. Ignore all the stupid stuff. Ignore the Uros and the Nissas. Jor-El does it for me.
Yeah, I love Jor-El, man. When you can ask Cedric Phillips, when that first card was first previewed, that was the card that I was gonna write my article about. But I know I brought it up on the broadcast before, but I thought it was gonna be a Todd card. Brad Nelson used to always make fun of me. Whenever a new set would come out, he'd be like, okay, here's Primal Amulet. And I'd be like, dude, this card's awesome, right? This is specifically for me. And they did the same thing with Talrand and Quirion Dryad reprint. And it was during the era where I was playing Delver of Secrets a lot. And Jor-El is a lot like a young Pyromancer in a lot of ways. But it was green. And I thought that I was going to play it alongside a bunch of ops and stuff, and it was just going to be bad. And so I was just like, okay, well, I'll just try to pick a more flashy card to write my article about instead. And then the first week, someone had 3 Jor-Els in their main deck, and it just won the tournament or whatever. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, you gotta believe in yourself, man.
I wish I could believe in myself more, honestly.
I do run into that problem sometimes where I let myself get tricked by some popular opinion. For example, when Jace Fringe Prodigy was previewed, I thought, whoa, how is this card pre-ordering? It opened at $5 or $10 or something, and I was like, I should buy a lot. This card is bananas, but everyone was like, that card sucks. And then it just defined the format the entire time it was legal.
Well,
Creatures rumbling in. Jor-El Ultimate. This is the other big thing the card does. It's an overrun effect too. Ton of value there. Burchett cleans up game number 1 with some help from Jor-El.
Yeah, you may be wondering why we were talking about Jace French Prodigy during that exchange, and it's because the game was over for 7 straight minutes. And we were,
Yeah. It's what in sports they refer to as garbage time.
Garbage time.
Yeah, I believe Burchett was up 10-3 and just hit a grand slam. Was
just a bit outside.
What the game was going on.
When I was a kid, I never thought that I would be in a position of a Bob Uecker type, But hot damn if I ain't happy about it. Sideboards here for both, yeah.
To sideboards. A bunch of negates coming in for Goetschel.
Yeah, and Autumn has those main deck, and it looks like Autumn had the game 1 advantage. We'll see if that advantage carries over to game number 2. Daniel here probably looking to get some of the removal out of his deck, but I mean the removal was Ether Gust, a Heartless Act can get out the deck, but Noxious Grass coming in, maybe some Eliminates are going out. Unclear how Goetschel wants to sideboard right this minute, but you got to imagine most of the tempo-based cards like Nisu Shakes the World are going to stay in. A lot of the cards that help win the longer games are going to stay in. But you got to have answers to the Jor-El. That's like front and center right now.
Yeah, it's tough to get that all correct. You see, there's a bunch of options. Ether Gust is the obvious one. That one's going to be in the deck. But these Eliminates, Heartless Act, Cry of the Carnarium, how big do you want to go in that sort of thing? Extinction Event, how many of those do you want? And we see Goetschel really trying to iron out where he wants these numbers.
Okay, first of all, I did not know that Goetschel was Gul Dukat. Gul Dukat has been playing a ton of Pioneer over the last 6 months. Is absolutely murking everybody with Dimir Inverter. This switch to a more mid-range strategy here in Standard with Soul Tyrant makes a lot of sense. I feel like Gul usually just ends up playing the best deck most of the time. And with Soul Tie being one of the best decks in the format, it's pretty interesting. So I'm curious. I'm very curious how Gul Dukat ends up going sideboard here for this matchup, because Autumn's deck is pretty unique, and not something that I'm sure he's used to playing against.
Yeah, an absolute monster on Magic Online, a Grand Prix champion as well.
Nice. Do you know which deck he used to win the Grand Prix? I'm curious now.
Don't put me on like that, man.
Oh no, I don't know. I was being very obvious about me not knowing. I didn't mean to.
Sure. I mean, I also don't know, but now you've just exposed both of our ignorance.
Well, never mind.
I care about people way more than decks, man.
That's fair. Well, there was a 1 month stretch where Goetschel lost no matches with Dimir Inverter. I would say that 90 plus 1% with Dimir Inverter across 8 events or whatever.
But I thought the deck was only 49%.
Here's the thing: there's a bunch of really bad players who play Magic the Gathering who don't understand how to leverage.
Yeah, you got to control data for quality. Thought Erasure, taking a look at a hand from Burchett. This hand has a bunch of lands, and that's got to be scary for Goetschel, because Burchett ended up being in control of the game more or less the entire time, kind of peeling for lands in the early turns last time.
Yeah, even though there's 3 lands hanging out, the Boon of the Wishgiver can cycle to find more, Shock Typhoon can cycle to find more, but I think the big story here is Jor-El and how easily it overtook game number 1. Even though there was some removal from the other side, that combined with Euro and Nisu Shakes the World was just a little too much. And the fact that it only cost 2 mana and could come down this turn and pose such a huge threat means that Thought Erasure just kind of has to naturally gravitate towards it.
Play on 2 is going to be Scavenging Ooze instead. Goetschel going to go ahead and deploy Uro anyway. That looks like ooze food to me.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Autumn just eats both the Euros here and attacks for 4. Maybe holds up the negate. Yeah, maybe it just goes for a cycle too. I don't know.
I expect you to eat at least 1. You can do all this at instant speed. I don't think the damage matters. So you see Burchett eats 1, plus 1's fine. Going to hold up negate for now. If that's not used, we'll go for that other Uro on Goetschel's end step.
Yeah, and probably a cycling of the Gopher Blood as well.
I want to see a 7/7 Ooze fight an Uro. Or maybe a 7/7 Shark.
That'd be kind of tight. That would be some real sci-fi movie stuff right there.
It's very appropriate for a Shark to go for blood. I'm just saying.
Oh, no, you're right. I'm surprised it doesn't have jaws on it. You know what I'm saying?
Tameo, Collector of Tales is going to be the first test on this negate.
Does it even matter? Does it even
face up?
Okay, minus cool. Okay, plus cool. Attack it for 4.
Doesn't matter is the question that Burchett's considering, and it's an interesting question. I mean, with Goetschel knowing about the negate, you got to figure this is one that's mostly a test spell. You see Burchett cycles Go for Blood, finds Mystical Dispute. This makes the proposition of countering it more enticing, and the Dispute does take it down.
Yeah, the negate being a hard counter basically for a Nisu Shakes the World at 2 mana is a huge deal in this type of a matchup. Mystical Dispute is still great, but a bit worse. And I think that looking for the cycle plus eat on the ooze and finding the Mystical Dispute in the meanwhile just shows the Autumn knows exactly what they're doing.
No surprise there from the Mythic Champion. Also a SCG Tour Online Championship Qualifier winner in Season 1. Scavenging is gonna eat that other Uro, becomes a 4/4, rumbles across, Goetschel to 14, and that negate up once again.
All right, Ren, did you see when that Scavenging Ooze just got activated? Did you see what it looked like?
I did not.
Okay, next time it gets activated, I need you to look at it.
All right, I will do my best.
Tell me what's wrong.
Okay.
This is you ever played that picture game at the bar where you figure out what's wrong in the picture?
Scavenging Ooze is being activated.
What's wrong with that activated ability right now?
I have like a Skype icon that covered up part of it, so you just gotta tell me, man.
All right, it's all white and unread. It's illegible. It blends into the just next time it pops up. It's literally I can't read it. I can't read.
Oh yeah, I definitely noticed that I could see I thought that the art might have been wrong because.
Oh no, the art
that's
is
the thing that happens sometimes. I was looking for it to maybe. Honestly, this is gonna sound maybe kind of weird, but I was hoping that it was in some way a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reference.
Oh man, I wish.
You see a 3/3 shark from Goetschel. Now we see another Uro. Just some Game 3 life explores here against that Scavenging Ooze on the battlefield.
Seems like Autumn has basically just had the perfect foil each game so far for both draws that Daniel has assembled. Game 1, a bunch of negates for the Planeswalkers and the Casualties of War. Game 2, Scavenging Ooze has eaten 3 Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath. This is really brutal for Daniel, and Autumn just showing why this Teamer deck might actually be a perfect foil for Sultai Ramp, one of the best decks in the format.
Yeah, Burchett definitely seems to have really carefully crafted this deck to have these interaction advantages up and down the curve, and love the way it's looking in this match here.
Yeah, see, I just want to be able to read what the Scavenging Ooze ability does, and I just can't do that when it's white text on a white background.
Yeah, that white text is no good.
It's okay. The Scavenging Ooze, though, pretty good. Pretty outrageous. Maybe, honestly, probably not better than the Jarail, but maybe, because eating all the Euros has been a huge deal. But when that Thought Erasure happened, Daniel had 1 Euro in hand only, and then saw after taking the Jarail, found a Scavenging Ooze on top to put into the graveyard, and then immediately drew another Euro. So just like a pretty weak sequence of draws here for Daniel, honestly.
Slops, illegible text on the card's ability. Props, power level of said illegible ability.
Yeah. I just blame the promo version, honestly.
Couple answers for that Scooze in Goetschel's hand now. Question is, has the damage already been done? See Noxious Grasp and Extinction Event. The event, though, it would also take care of the shark, and this is a really sorry-looking Casualties of War at the top of everything.
I think the real story, though, is the Scavenging Ooze is bigger than the shark, right? And if Autumn just holds up, protection for most of the game for the Scavenging Ooze, I don't know that they can lose. But it looks like that they're going to go a little more aggressive here with a 3/3 Shark Typhoon. It's going to open the door for this Noxious Grass, and now maybe Daniel finds a way to claw back into this game.
Yeah, the 3/3 Shark is just sized the same as Goetschel's. The difference maker, though, and this is something you got to imagine Burchett is tuned into, is this Uro in Burchett's hand. That's going to turn into a 6/6. Goetschel will never have that opportunity in this game.
Yeah, the Scavenging Ooze just kept the first 3 in check, and I don't even know if there's a 4th one in the list. I mean, I'm just going to go look. I doubt it. Most play 3 right now. Oh, there are 4, excuse me. Oh, that's Autumn's list.
Yeah, there are 4, but even still, there's a backup Scavenging Ooze in Burchett's hand.
Right. That was the thing that was going to keep it mostly in check. I was thinking of like a world where the Scavenging Ooze comes down a little early, and then Extinction Event eats it, and then the 4th one is drawn, and the graveyard is refilled. Not gonna.
It's possible. It's possible. I've seen Stranger Things.
I have too. Season.
Not the TV show. I haven't seen the TV show. I should clarify. I've watched a lot of Magic, though.
And I've watched a lot of Stranger Things.
Couple of little green monsters to rebuild here. Joel Rail and that scavenging ooze.
This is a nutty sequence here. This extinction event plus negate here is going to be pretty good.
It'll do a good job at cleaning up the battlefield. Here's extinction event. Negate will fight over that. Goetschel picked up negate of his own. Let's make that work. Evens. Get rid of those creatures. But at the end of it, Burchett does still just have this Uro.
Yeah, and finds the land, so now that they can Euro from hand and then Euro from the graveyard, it's going to be up to Daniel if he wants to actually try to answer with Casualties of War and try to fight the Euro from the graveyard again in a few turns.
And I believe... Well, okay, Burchett doesn't have an overflowing graveyard. No. Looks like just one card left over here after the Uro escapes. There is a Dispute in hand and another card on the way, though, so it doesn't usually take too long for here. Ott picked up as well, so some good churn on the deck.
Yeah, and Autumn also has a bunch of cards that naturally cycle, so it's important to know that even if the Euro dies right now, as long as it's not exiled, it should come back in a few turns, if not next turn.
Here's Noxious Grasp off the top for Goetschel. That's an easier one to use on just an Uro than the Casualties.
Yeah, Casualties, like I said last game, needs to be saved for the Planeswalkers most of the time. This negate's a pretty hot pickup, though, for Autumn.
Yeah, opt into negate. That can stay on top. Land off the top means Uro's going to stay in the graveyard for a little while, but Burchett's not terribly afraid of Goetschel at this juncture. Little land go for a turn or two here.
But I think the big story here, though, is that Autumn still has access to Euro, whereas Daniels are all eaten by Scavenging Ooze. So as the game progresses, Euro from Autumn should threaten to take over the game eventually. It's a matter of when, not if.
Narset off the top for Goetschel. Burchett hanging on to that negate, though. Getting ever closer to that Uro. I'm really interested if Goetschel goes for this Narset. How do you feel about starting on Dispute to fill the graveyard? All right, well, forget about that. Burchett's not interested.
No, because there's always a chance that the Dispute ends up having value in a few turns when both players are just like super low on resources.
My math was off too. So the negate was just enough.
No. The Fabled Passage plus the negate was enough. Oh, wait, no, you were right.
Yeah, there's one extra.
Ignore me!
Yeah. Here comes Uro. Ooh, and a Triome picked up. That's a card. We'll cycle that right away.
It could be anything.
Even a Go for Blood.
Oh, you're not going to get your wish of watching Go for Blood fight something.
You hate to see it. Oh, and there's the Typhoon, too.
That shark could have gone for blood.
Maybe someday. I like Burchett's odds, at least in this round and in the tournament, because I love the look of their deck for this weekend.
Absolutely. When everyone's playing, these like really grindy mid-range decks, you have a grindy mid-range deck that also has a bunch of counter spells and all these Jarrells and 2-drops and Boona the Wishgiver, and it all just starts to come together and make sense. Another Go for Blood cycled? What?
You hate to see it. It's going to make this Uro pop out of the graveyard, though.
I know. But I just wanted to see it.
Really minor thing. And when I say really minor, in terms of game tactics, it's not going to matter in the slightest. Goetschel used Casualties of War to destroy Uro. Didn't even destroy a land. You know what that means? That means he's just not invested in the game anymore. Why even bother? We're just going through the motions at this point.
No. It's because he wanted to make it a little harder for the Euro, but the cycling of the Go for Blood gave Autumn just enough cards to bring it back. Gul Dukat does not give up in the middle of the game. Gul Dukat decisions are important and matter.
The heart of a warrior. You're saying I'm projecting on the heart of a warrior.
I think
my coward energy.
You think that the game is over, and you think that it was a mistake, but it was in fact a calculated decision. We are not the same.
Well, if it was calculated and it matters, we'll know before long. As Goetschel drops to 2.
I'm gonna draw 4 cards. What do you think? Draw 4 cards or play Nizu Shakes the World? I'm gonna draw 4 personally. Yeah, maybe both.
The small joy that I personally would be able to derive from this match on Ghoul Dukat side would have been destroying a land. That would have been the only thing I could have happily said about a match like this.
And then a tight concession, like destroy land.
Destroy your land and seed. Exactly.
Yeah. Another Boon of the Wish Giver. Let's go.
Not bad. Fabled Passage off the top. Autumn Burchett takes this one down 2-0, advances a 3-0 in our championship qualifier today. And I gotta say, yeah, it's early. I like Autumn Burchett in this tournament this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it is rare that a format looks and feels like pretty solved, and then someone just comes with a hot knife through butter and just slices through. Autumn currently 3-0, and I feel that is ripe with Sultai midrange, and just destroyed one of the best players in the tournament, playing the best deck in the tournament. Autumn Burchett, teamer. What do we call